The Man on Fire by Richard L. Elsliger. Man on fire, Mommy! Man on fire, Daddy! Cindy Butler clutched her doll and pushed open her bedroom door. She sprinted down the hall and shoved on another door. It creaked open, and Cindy rushed in like flooding water, filling the compartment of a torpedoed ship. She shook her father's shoulder, but he remained unresponsive. She pounced on the bed. Her mother groaned and twisted. Her father sighed. He sat up, eyes half shut. "What is it, sweetie?" he asked. "Man on fire," Cindy repeated. She tugged on his hand to lead him down the hall. "What is it?" asked her mother. "Bad dream, no doubt," said her father. "Go back to sleep. I'll check it out." "Come on, Daddy. Man on fire." Cindy pulled on her father's hand with surprising strength, indicative to Logan the urgency of the situation, at least in his daughter's mind. Okay. Where is the man on fire?" Cindy let go her father's hand and tiptoed to her room. She peeked around the open door, and Logan followed right behind. At 6 feet, he had the visual advantage over a toddler less than half his size. When he rounded the corner to her bedroom, he saw the shadowy outline of her bed, the silhouette of her desk, the rows of dolls displayed on a nearby shelf, and very little else. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was out of place. The window to the bedroom remained shut, with no signs of entry. "Man on fire?" said his daughter, questioning her own words. "Man on fire?" said her father. "Go back to sleep, honey. There's no man on fire here." Cindy hugged her dad's legs and dutifully climbed into bed. Logan Butler tucked his daughter in and told her not to worry, that it was simply a bad dream. "Good night, little one," he said. "Good night," she exhaled. Logan hobbled back to bed, but not before stepping on a toy in the hallway. He grabbed his foot, then felt a chill breeze on his neck. For a second, he detected the faint odor of car exhaust, and then it dissipated. In the morning, the Butler family assembled at the breakfast table. Rays of sunlight penetrated the translucent curtains, and a soft breeze entered through the open window, making the curtains ripple in gentle waves of parched white. Mary poured Logan a cup of hot coffee and one for herself. Cindy awkwardly filled her bowl with cereal, spilling a few nuggets to the floor. Mary said nothing and picked them up, tossing the sugary detritus to the nearby trash. She was grateful to have her only child after a monumental effort to conceive over the last 3 years. Moving into this new home provided a cherry topper on the exquisite cake of a perfect life, and Mary delighted in their current situation. "Did everyone sleep well?" she asked. "Well, not as well as some, right, Cindy?" said Logan. Cindy nodded her affirmance, pouring a cup of milk over her cereal. "I saw a man on fire last night," she said. "Is that right?" said Mary. Logan interjected, stating that it amounted to nothing more than a child's bad dream. Mary understood too well the phenomenon of night terrors, having endured them in her own childhood. She'd witnessed things that were better left unseen. She vacillated within the darker chambers of her mind whether such a gene existed for night terrors, and if it did, could such a gene be passed on from generation to generation. "Everyone has bad dreams in their lives," said Logan. "Tell us what you saw," said Mary. She sat down at the table and ate some scrambled eggs with toast and trained her eyes on her daughter like a pair of argon lasers. "I saw a big man all on fire," said Cindy. "Anything else?" asked Logan, digging into his sausage and eggs spread across the plate. Cindy nodded that there had, in fact, been more. "Well, what?" said Logan. "He said he was lost. He said he can't find a way." Cindy crunched on her cereal and watched the fluttering kitchen curtains. "Did he have a name?" asked Mary. "No," she said. "Well, Cindy, we all have bad dreams once in a while, even grown-ups." "I know," said Cindy in the most adorable of childish ways. "So it's official," said Logan. "This is your first bad dream in our new home." "Logan, don't make it so dramatic. You're scaring her." "Am I scaring you, Cindy?" asked Logan. "No, Daddy, but the man on fire scared me." "Well, the man on fire won't come back. I'll make sure of it," said Logan. Cindy smiled and chewed on the sweet, toasty nuggets, milk dribbling from her mouth. "Well, it's Saturday," said Logan. I say we go check out the local mall and maybe go toy shopping." Cindy yelled out a "Yay!" and chewed faster. The butlers finished their breakfast and boarded the family SUV. Logan checked the map and devised a circuitous course to the nearest mall, driving through their newfound neighborhood, scrutinizing the front lawns of neighbors with a mind to keeping up appearances. In 15 minutes, the butlers arrived at a large indoor shopping center, a place they knew only by the stack of welcome mail piled at their door, inviting newcomers to sample the nearby stores and restaurants. When they pushed through the main doors, the interior opened up to a scenic oasis of sparkling waterfalls, lush greenery, and fish ponds, stocked to the brim with bright orange and white spotted koi. Cindy smiled and walked over to one of the ponds. She held her hand over the bubbling water, and the koi merged beneath her, mouths agape in a Pavlovian way. "Come on, sweetie, let's go look at some toys," said Logan. "Yeah," said Cindy. Logan took his daughter by the hand, and Mary took her other. Logan zeroed in on the mall map and located 2 toy stores close in proximity. "Toy stores found, sweetie. We're on our way," said Logan. A scant few people walked the mall, some shoppers interspersed with elderly exercise hounds walking the perimeter of the mall layout, their own personal racetrack. Ostentatious metal bars and austere chained locks lined a few stores, suggestive of bankruptcies and premature closings, fallen victims to the weakened economy. "Light traffic," said Mary. "Where is everybody?" "Who knows," said Logan. "We're early, but that doesn't explain the bars. I wonder why these stores closed." "Toy store!" shouted Cindy, and she broke free of her parents, running like a demonic changeling toward the entranceway. The sales representative greeted her arrival with a big blue balloon. She snapped it up like a piranha and ran to the back of the store. She stopped cold at the model cars. Logan and Mary closed in on Cindy, passing numerous toys that Mary surmised might garner her daughter's interest, toys her mother deemed more appropriate for a young girl. "So you like cars, do you?" said Logan. "Yes," said Cindy. "But dear, there are a lot of other interesting toys around the store you might like," suggested her mother. "Let her decide what she wants," said Logan. "If she wants a car, I think that's perfectly fine." Mary rolled her eyes in frustration, and Logan gave her a look of intense disapproval. Cindy remained hyper-focused on a collection of die-cast cars strewn along a shelf. She scooped up a handful of various representations, some of them decked out in race trim. She laid them out on a nearby empty shelf and stared. She separated the street cars from the race cars and examined the numbers painted on their panels, scrutinized their wheels and the body shapes, mired deeply inside her own thoughts. Logan and Mary locked eyes and spoke to each other in subtle tones, attempting to ascertain what exactly they were witnessing. "Take your time, Cindy," said Logan. "I want this one," she said. Cindy picked out the chosen die-cast and held it in her palm, examining the body lines and paintwork at every angle. It looked to be a vintage piece from the late 1960s. "Well, that's quite a little piece you found there," said Mary. The miniature car shined like a gemstone in her hand, the number 66 emblazoned on the doors. Minty green paint adorned the body of the car, and microscopic racing decals peppered the front fenders. Dull black rubber fit snugly over minuscule racing rims. Cindy fixated on the car in her hand. "Is that the one?" asked Logan. "Yes," said Cindy. Mary attempted to guide Cindy to other areas of the store and check out toys deemed more fitting for her daughter, but Cindy resisted. Mary shrugged her shoulders and acceded to Cindy's choice. At the cash register, Cindy did not want to let go of the car. "Cindy, you need to let the man look at the car so we can buy it for you," said Mary. Cindy held the car captive but loosened her grip when her father insisted to let the man see the car and ring up the purchase. Cindy handed the die-cast over to the sales representative. The employee picked up the car and examined it in great detail. "Wow, that's a nice one," he said. "Good choice." He rang up the purchase and bagged the die-cast. Cindy pulled the bag away from him in the most protective way. "Cindy, what do you say to the man?" asked her father. "Thank you," she answered, and skipped out of the store with the purchase, leaving behind her balloon to float with abandon toward the ceiling. "Well, she seems happy," said Mary. "She sure does," said Logan. "I wonder why she's so fixated on die-cast cars." "Who knows? It's a passing fad, no doubt." "Yes, no doubt," said Logan in a faraway voice, less convinced. They walked the rest of the mall, drifting in and out of gift shops, jewelry retailers, and clothing stores, until they'd scoured the mall from end to end. Cindy pulled on her parents to leave. She'd had enough. "Looks like that's our cue to leave," said Logan. "I've seen enough too," said Mary. The family headed for the exit door, satisfied with their frolic and detour beyond the boundaries of their subdivision, and Cindy most certainly satisfied with her latest acquisition. On the way home, Cindy removed the die-cast from its bag, and she played with the little car, running it along her forearm, making car sounds. Logan observed her with a sharp and vigilant eye from the rearview mirror. He formed a grin at his daughter's amusement in such toys, wondering if she might grow up to be a mechanic someday. His father and his father's father had been possessed of a mechanical aptitude, fixing cars from the family-owned garage that went bankrupt some years before Logan grew to adulthood. The bankruptcy and subsequent closing proved a devastating blow to his father and grandfather, from which they never recovered financially or emotionally. The Butler family had displayed much pride in their shop, and for it to be eradicated by an economic downturn seemed unfair in the most profound sense. Logan chose a different line of work, disappointed from the shop closure, but inside still beat the heart of a mechanic. To honor the family business, he pledged to go on and become a mechanical engineer, to which his father and grandfather displayed immense pride. Both men were gone now, and Logan's mother no longer recognized her own son during heart-wrenching visits to the nursing home. Logan looked at his wife and then his daughter, both reflected at him in the rearview mirror, and knew he needed to look forward to his future with his present family. A close friend once told him that it was okay to look into the past, but never to stare. Cindy spent the afternoon wheeling the die-cast car around the floor. She shoved at it and delighted in seeing the little thing streak across the hardwood floor. She would run to the opposite end of the living room and repeat the procedure, sending the number 66 die-cast racing to the other end. The dinner bell clanged in her stomach, and when Mary announced that it was time to eat, Cindy abandoned her play activity, but not without taking the car with her to the dinner table. Between nibbling at her mashed potatoes and drinking her milk, she wheeled the number 66 around the dinner table without cessation. Logan said nothing, but Mary finally snapped, "Cindy, stop playing with that foolish little car and eat your dinner. Stop it right now." Cindy looked at her mother with wide eyes and put the car aside. She put her head down and ate fast. When she finished, she left the table, taking the car with her to her bedroom. "What is it with that damn car?" Mary asked. "Just let her be. She isn't hurting anyone by it. Let her have her fun with it," said Logan. Mary shook her head and picked up Cindy's empty plate, dropping it in the sink. Logan and Mary finished their dinner and retreated to the living room. Mary scanned her phone, and Logan delved into his computer, reading the latest articles on mechanical engineering. Cindy busied herself in her bedroom, playing with the number 66 on the floor, on the walls, and on the bed. She waited for the night to arrive, hoping not to see the man on fire again, but if she did, then she would show her parents. She watched the hours slip away on her wall clock, and before long, bedtime arrived. Mary went to Cindy's bedroom and opened the door to see her daughter still playing with that crazy die-cast car. "Okay, Cindy, it's time to put the toy away and go to bed." "Okay, Mommy." Mary took the car and put it on the shelf next to Cindy's dolls and folded down the bed sheets. Cindy climbed in and Mary kissed her forehead. Logan came to the door. "Everything okay in here?" "She's fine," said Mary. "Everything good, Daddy?" Logan smiled and entered. He gave his daughter an affectionate kiss on the cheek. "Sleep well, little one," he said. Cindy smiled at her parents and closed her eyes. Satisfied their daughter would have a restful night, they left and closed the door. Down the hall, Logan and Mary settled in for their own restful night and drifted off. At 3 o'clock in the morning, a thunderstorm brewed in the distance, the faintest of rumblings announcing their presence in the night sky. The window panes to Cindy's room vibrated with mild annoyance, awakening her from her slumber. The storm of rumblings drew nearer, and soon the rumblings sounded more like the din of unrestricted car exhaust. The exhaust notes grew loud, and then receded in an exquisite Doppler effect that captivated her senses. She smelled the infiltration of raw car exhaust into her bedroom, and she sat up in bed, the acrid and sickly sweet odor invading her personal space. She climbed out of bed and went to remove the 66 car from the shelf. She picked up the die-cast and brought it back to bed with her, while the blare of unrestricted exhaust bombarded her ears with decibels at the threshold of pain. A tumultuous crash of metal filled her room, and Cindy clutched the number 66 car in her hand. She felt it shrink and crumble into a blob of unrecognizable metal. She looked down at her cherished die-cast and dropped the car to the floor. The faintest flickering of light on the walls of her bedroom danced before her eyes, the flashes picked up by her youthful and highly sensitive retinas. She trained her eyes toward the farthest corner of the room and saw a man materialize through a wall. Flames engulfed him from head to toe, and he reached out to her in a pleading way. Cindy shrieked and bolted from her bedroom, shouting, "Man on fire! Man on fire!" She rammed open the bedroom door of her parents and rushed to their bedside, shouting about a man on fire. Logan and Mary woke more readily this time and raced from their bed, following their daughter in tow, headed down the hallway. When they reached Cindy's bedroom, flashes of light broached the perimeter and rumbles reverberated off of the walls. The electrical storm elevated its intensity, and Cindy grasped onto her father's leg, refusing to let go. They saw no man on fire. "There's nothing here, honey," said her father. Mary shook her head and walked back to the master bedroom. "If you want to stay with us tonight, you can," said her father. Cindy nodded in the affirmative and sniveled. He carried her down the hall and brought her to their bedroom. Cindy nestled between her parents, listening to the storm gain with intensity. The thunder and pounding rain kept the Butlers awake for several more minutes before the power of sleep encompassed them all, and the three drifted off until morning with no further issues, and certainly no man on fire. When Cindy returned to her bedroom come the morning light, she found her die-cast car on the floor. She picked up the number 66 and scrutinized it with an intense eye. She found no signs of damage, no crumpled body panels that she distinctly recalled from the nightmare. She puzzled no further over it and took the car with her to the breakfast table. "I take it everyone slept reasonably well," said Logan. "Yes, reasonable being the operative word," said Mary. Cindy played with the number 66 car, oblivious to her mother's commentary. Logan shot a glance to his wife with the implication that she let up on any possible diatribe about the man on fire. Mary turned away and brewed some coffee in the maker. Much better, thought Logan. We will leave it at that. Cindy refrained from any further mention of the man on fire, and the Butlers enjoyed a peaceful breakfast together at the table. Cindy broke away from the table and spent her day playing outdoors, putting any image of the man on fire in her rearview mirror. She held on to the die-cast in her pocket and chased iridescent butterflies wherever they landed to gather nectar. An old orange tree provided her with comfortable shade from the afternoon sun, and Cindy picked up a fallen orange. She peeled the skin and sectioned the orange with her nimble fingers. The freshness of the slices detonated a sweetness that Cindy relished. She removed the die-cast from her pocket and played with the car on the patio. She pushed the car along the cement and it left her hand. The die-cast rolled under its own power past the patio and continued on over the manicured grass. It drove on in defiance to any of the Newtonian laws of physics, continuing to roll unassisted by any electronics or wind-up mechanisms. It made left turns and right turns, then circled back towards Cindy. It skipped over the grass, returned to the patio, and rolled to a stop next to her foot. Cindy laughed at the acrobatics of her toy, unperturbed by the fact that its motions defied all logical explanation in the world of the living. She scooped up the number 66 and skipped to the house. She giggled on her way to the bedroom. "Well, someone's having a good day," said Logan. "It would seem so," said Mary. She played with her phone, and Logan read laborious treatises on mechanical engineering. Come nightfall, Mary dreaded another interrupted sleep and cautioned her daughter not to have any more nightmares about any man on fire. Cindy agreed not to have any such dreams and retreated to her bedroom. The nighttime ritual of tucking their daughter into bed completed, the Butlers again retired to their own bedroom and secretly prayed for a peaceful night. Again at 3 a.m., Cindy awoke to the distant growl of thunder, a grumbling ebb and flow of noise. Its rumblings grew incrementally louder, and she inhaled the heavy smell of car exhaust. She did not fear what was to follow. She waited for the man on fire to show himself. A crash of metal rippled through her bedroom, and then an explosion erupted that shook the house. Logan shot up in bed, and then Mary. They looked at each other with the most incredulous expression of horror and tore out from their bedroom, headed directly to check on Cindy. Logan opened the door with a flourish and saw his daughter standing before a haunting bright orange silhouette that lit up his daughter's bedroom. Mary gasped at the horrendous sight of the man on fire. They stood immobilized, unable to decipher the vision with their rational minds. Cindy took her little number 66 die-cast, crumpled and damaged beyond repair, and held it out to the burning phantom. It crouched and studied the damaged toy in Cindy's hand, tilting its head from side to side. The burning man was beginning to understand. It stood up and looked to her parents. Logan made a motion toward the burning phantom to do battle with the supernatural. The burning effigy of this man, dressed in racing garb and a helmet, looked upward to the ceiling and raised its hands. The ghostly image began to fade away, and the flames winked out. Cindy smiled and looked to her parents. "He needed to be released, Mommy and Daddy. He needed to go to another place. He wanted me to help him, and I showed him the way. He won't be back." Cindy's parents stood in disbelief at what they had just witnessed and the level of sophistication that came from their daughter's words, both fascinated and horrified their psyches. "What the hell just happened?" asked Mary. "I think we bought a haunted house," said Logan. Together they looked at their daughter in awe, unsure of their next words. Logan grabbed his daughter by the hand and ushered her away from that room and out to their SUV, Mary picking up a few articles of clothing. Logan shoved the SUV hard in reverse and rolled out to the street with biting rubber. They skidded away to a nearby hotel and tried to make sense of the man on fire, half believing and half discounting what they witnessed as some mass hallucination. When they reached the check-in desk, Logan asked the night manager what he knew about the subdivision, what scraps of information he might relay. "Well, that subdivision used to be home to an old racetrack called Riverside Raceway," said the night manager. "They tore it down years ago and put up a bunch of houses. I've heard stories." "What kind of stories?" asked Mary, her face twisted in a painful grimace. "Well, I personally don't believe it, but there is talk that the area is haunted." Logan and Mary looked at each other with knowing glances. "Why would it be haunted?" asked Logan. "Track deaths," said the night manager. "How many?" said Mary, her voice faltering. 19 drivers, if memory serves," he said. "How do you want to pay?" Logan put down his credit card. "He won't be back, Daddy." Logan cast his eyes down to his daughter, skeptical of her assertion. "How do you know?" he asked. "I know, Daddy." Mary looked at Logan. "Should we chance going back?" she asked. "Let's try," said Logan, and picked up his credit card. "On second thought, we're going to pass on the room," said Mary. "Is everything all right?" asked the night manager. "Everything's fine. Take care," said Logan, and guided his family to the exit. Logan drove home with apprehension unlike any he'd ever experienced. He wasn't a believer in paranormal happenings, but what he saw this early morning he could not deny. He arrived at their house and drove into the driveway, his stomach tied in knots. Worry lines etched his wife's face like acid to stone, and her own fears grew at an exponential rate when Logan turned off the engine. Cindy smiled in the back seat, unperturbed by any man on fire, now that she understood. Logan pulled the house key and inserted it in the front door, every click of the tumblers transmitting vibrations to his fingers, their intensity magnified by the potential horror waiting on the other side. The key came to a stop and Logan twisted. He cracked open the door and cast a singular glance into their darkened living room. "Hello?" he said in a sheepish voice. "Anyone home?" Cindy came from behind and shoved open the door, running inside unabated through the living room, headed to her bedroom. Her parents walked through the front door, exercising hypervigilance to the possibility of a supernatural attack, an assault and battery upon their very souls they might fail to manage with any level of competency. "Nothing here," said Logan, and took his wife by the hand to check on Cindy. Cindy lay in her bed, the little number 66 car resting on her pillow, and she began to fall asleep. Mary and Logan scanned the room for anything horrible and saw nothing to indicate that there had ever been any man on fire. "Mass hallucination," said Logan. "Let's go to bed." Logan and Mary retired to their bedroom and slept a fitful and short cat nap before the morning rays disrupted their groggy lethargy. Logan spent his day researching the history of their subdivision. It was true beyond any reasonable doubt that their house, along with many others, was built upon the ashes of a racetrack. The Butler house happened to be built on turn 9. He read horrid stories of Riverside Raceway, the crashes and the deaths interspersed with the triumphs and the victory over the decades. Logan conveyed his revelations to his wife, and together they waited for nightfall, frayed nerves undoing their wits to the point that Mary wanted to bolt from the place and get to a hotel before twilight's end. Logan insisted that they stay and give it one more try, trusting that their daughter knew something that they did not. The family retired to bed and waited. At 3 o'clock in the morning, a hell-raising shriek penetrated the night air, waking the whole of the Butler house. Cindy went running to her parents, who were already at their bedroom window, fixated on the spectacle unraveling beyond their home. The next-door neighbors raced around their backyard, consumed by hysteria, whimpering and wringing their hands, the wife dialing for emergency assistance while her husband retrieved a shovel from the shed. Cindy looked at her parents. "I can make it go away. If they ask me, I can make it go away."